Hi, everybody. John here, and today I have the honor of interviewing Andy Gupta. I'm so excited. Andy, I'm so happy that you're here. I
Oh,
am,
John, thank you for having me. We've known each other for over a year now, and
yeah.
I just love who you are,
Oh,
the
thank you.
values that you stand for, how you serve. And I know I've been after you, John. It would be great to be on your show. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited.
Well, Andy, you make my show. How's that?
You are very humble and very kind.
Oh, so Andy, just tell me a little bit about your journey and how all this started. Like,
Yeah, sure. So, John, for those who may not know me, which will be most of you,
yeah.
um, look, I didn't grow up with wealth. I grew up in Mumbai, and not the fancy part of Mumbai. Uh, and I it was it was a very tough childhood for me, and I needed to leave home to be able to make a man out of me, and I had big ambitions and big goals. The good thing is I didn't let that childhood trauma take me into a direction of alcohol or drugs, which could have easily happened. Instead, I left home in after 10th grade on scholarships and effectively paid my way through high school and college in the United States. But I had no safety net. And I grew up watching my mom really struggle in a unhappy and abusive marriage, and neither she nor I really had the power to do anything. And that really formed this view about one, gender equality, and also two, about financial independence and why was my mom so dependent
Mm.
um, on um, on this marriage, which obviously was not good for either one of them. And it was my mission. I think what kept me going, I think, John, you asked me this question, or somebody else asked me this question, is, Andy, how did you not fall into alcohol or drugs? Because that was very difficult. It's because I had a single mission. I wanted to protect my mom. And if I wanted to protect my mom and I wanted to provide for her, going that route would not have helped.
Right.
So I had to focus on my education. I had to focus on my extracurriculars so that I could win scholarships. And I came here for college, were 5 jobs in school, and I knew the only path for me was Wall Street. There was no plan B, because Wall Street at that time paid the most, and that's where I was going to go. And I beat all odds. Look, I went to a great school, but Wall Street didn't hire at that school. I remember calling every investment bank on Wall Street, and they'd be like, sorry, Andy, you sound good, but you're not at a target school.
uh,
And at that point, I made it a mission to end up and work at the #1 investment bank in the world, Goldman Sachs. And that wasn't enough for me. So you start to see how my drive, how my
yeah.
childhood drove this drive, this fire. That wasn't enough if I ended up at Goldman Sachs. I wanted to be in the #1 group within Goldman Sachs, mergers and acquisitions. And
Wow.
they took about 12 college kids every year. And I still remember the day when I got the call from the head of mergers and acquisition saying, Andy, we would love to welcome you into the new class in the M&A department at Goldman Sachs. My hair still stands, and that was about 25 years ago. And that
Wow.
started off a career, a 20 plus year career on Wall Street. Lots of things have happened. We'll maybe cover that in our program here today. But I left my Wall Street career a year ago.
Wow.
And there's a very deep reason for that. It's 2023. At that point, it was 2022. And what I saw with women is they're still being told how to live. I spoke to close to 1,000 women in a year, and there were three common themes. Why do I have to work 10 to 15 years longer than a man to
Mm.
get to the same place in retirement? It's 2022. Why do I still have to do that? Second, I've been widowed or I am divorced, and I fell into the stereotypical role where the husband manages the money.
Yeah.
And now I am so lost and I'm so scared. How am I going to raise my kids? How am I going to plan for retirement? And there's fear, absolute fear that's paralyzing. And the third one in spite of the Me Too movement, the number of times I've heard from women is that I'm still being sexually harassed at work. And if I report this, surprisingly, I was surprised. If I report this, the guy's going to get fired. But my career at this firm that I've built, spent so many years building equity here and all this goodwill and my hard work, my career at this firm is going to end. Mm. And if I don't report, it's daily hell. And I wish I had the financial resources to basically say, you know what, I'm out of here and it doesn't matter. Right. And all of this goes towards how I grew up. Me feeling helpless in a situation and my mom feeling helpless. It all goes into that. And I think financial empowerment is a woman's birthright. Absolute birthright, yet it remains elusive. And I felt, hey, I've got a skill set that I can share. It took me 20 years of trial and error. It took me 20 years of working 90-hour weeks when there were days when I couldn't talk because I had worked 2 nights in a row and I couldn't move my jaw. I went through that pain. You don't need to. And I launched this mission that I want to serve women. I want to work with women. About 1,000 women have taken my free workshops. John, I'm doing another one next week. And about 140 have taken my course. And I am just this, John, often people ask me like, wow, Andy, that was crazy. Even Dean, our mentor, Dean Graziosi, right, had an interview. He's like, Andy, you must be crazy to walk away from a Wall Street career. Why? And I'm like, this is why. Because what I'm doing now is so much more meaningful, John, than having invested billions in Wall Street. And John, I tell you, my mom told me one of the best things you can do, it's not money. It's not money. One of the best things you can collect. Get emotional. One of the best things you can collect, John, is a woman's blessings. Mm-hmm. And John, I am so heartened. Almost every day I receive a blessing from a woman. I received 3 today.
Oh, wow.
And John, when you receive these blessings that are so genuine, so heartfelt, that I played a small role in giving someone hope, changing their life. And they're blessing me. That joy, I can't use words. I can only feel it. I can't describe it. And because of the way I grew up, I feel when I'm serving a woman, when I'm working with her, when I'm sharing my skill set with her, I'm serving my mom. Because she's someone's mom. Or I'm serving my daughters the way I would like someone sometime later serve with their skill set, teach my daughters, because that woman that I'm serving is someone's daughter.
Right.
And this is what is so meaningful for this new path that I'm on, John.
That's just awesome. I mean, that just touches me. I mean, because more than money is just service, you know, to enrich in someone's life and to pull someone up and give them hope and let them find their meaning and then share that with others too. It's just awesome. That you can never buy that in a million years.
You can't buy that. And especially, John, when you layer that with money is emotional, right? Money is triggering.
It is.
A lot of people can't even hear a money conversation. Some people may click off right now in this interview, right now, because they hear a conversation about money and it's so hard and it's triggering and brings back emotions. Quite often we have not even recognized, we haven't studied where those emotions are coming from. They're usually stories we made up as children. Happy to share mine. And it's one of those inner villains that is creating this anxiety within the body, right? The central nervous system is designed to protect you.
Right.
And now it thinks there is this saber-toothed tiger in front of you,
right?
Because it's evoking certain responses and you can feel those bodily responses and you feel very uncomfortable, but you haven't really studied why you're having those, and immediately you turn off and you walk away. And what that does is people never address their deep-held money beliefs. And that stops them from living the life that they're truly meant to live, because money feels emotional, money is triggering.
Well, they get stuck in that they just obsess over money because they don't have any. But then on the flip side, they look around and they think that people who have money and everything else are corrupt and like almost evil. You got that conundrum going back and forth of like, oh, money's bad. If you have tons of money, it's bad, and if you have, but then they have none, and they don't realize that it's like energy, and it's supposed to flow, and the more you give, the more you receive. But even that whole principle of that giving it away to get more, you're like, no, this is my last one. I'm hanging on. It's like, I'm not going to turn on the light switch because I'm going to use all the electricity on this light bulb. So I'm leaving it. I'm going to just hold it for someday.
So there's two important aspects that you just brought up, John. This is so valuable. So there's deep knowledge in what you just shared. Can I expand on this a little bit?
Oh, exactly. Go.
So, I teach, of course, I do a ton of free workshops. Most of my content is available for free. But then we go into this 10-week live cohort-based program I just take 20 at a time. And we start off with money beliefs, because I can teach the best strategies of investing that I've experienced in Wall Street, but they will all fly out the window the first time the market crashes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's very important to understand our emotional setup around money. And we go through this exercise of understanding our money beliefs, which actually, John, is so interesting. It's multi-generational. These conversations have been passed on from one generation to another, and we never really think about it. We never question, because of course, why would I question? My mom and my dad are saying this, right? Why would I question their beliefs?
Right.
And then they got it from their mom and dad. I need to go back generations. You definitely don't question your parents, right?
No.
So, and we're living with those money beliefs, or from experiences we've had as children or later in life. So let me share a couple of money beliefs that some of my students have shared, and of course we'll keep it anonymous, but the value in this is the money belief, right? And it's not just from one person, but multiple people. So I had this person who is in his 30s, and his belief was that I don't want to become rich because rich people have dysfunctional families. Right? So interesting. And he does not want to become rich, which is why he hasn't invested. And through this, just in the first week, when we worked through the money beliefs, he radically shifted his view, and through the 10 weeks, completely shifted his view that, wow, I can actually, that's a story that I made up. Yes, some rich people, sure enough, have dysfunctional families. But all rich people don't have dysfunctional families.
No. Most poor people do have dysfunctional families.
Right. But what was important is he had that belief, and he was limiting himself in life to take the actions to become rich. And what do you do with that money is a different story. Now, this other woman, incredible woman, and she worked the front desk at one of the best hotels in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And she would interact with a lot of Hollywood celebrities. And she came up with a lot of entitled rich people.
Oh, okay. I get
it. And you know, when one is at a hotel, I don't know, people sometimes are really mean with front desk. They're very demanding. So she walked away with the impression that rich people are really evil. They're really mean.
Right. Self-centered and everything else.
Yeah. She's a psychologist. I'm a really giving person. And she shifted her framework. I'll give you a third example. This woman, she's a physician. She's in her mid-40s. And when we started with this, she was like, I'm taking this course, Andy, about investing, but you know what? And she's going through a divorce. Money's not important to me. Money's not important to me. And I'm like, let's see how her story develops. Right? She's got boys, and as she went through the course, she realized that this is something she got from her parents, that having money means it's bad, or I feel guilty. So money's not important for me. But then she realized how important money is, especially as she's going through a divorce, right? Money is so important because I can provide for my kids. I can provide for a future that I have, and I can actually make an impact for the causes that I really believe in. So these transformations are so important. And what it does, John, is it moves people from living life with these self-limiting beliefs about money and growing rich and abundance. You talked about turning off the light switch. That comes from a place of scarcity. And a lot of immigrants, surprisingly, have that. I'm an immigrant. I had that as well. Instead, shifting it to abundance, recognizing what this money story is within us. And once we recognize it doesn't go away, John. I've experienced it for 45 years. That money story doesn't go away. That self-esteem story doesn't go away. But what it does is anytime it shows up, where the body gets tensed, if I'm talking about money or I see a rich person, I'm like, oh, see, that person is mean. All rich people are mean. That I start to reflect, oh, this is my story, and let me reframe it. So it comes up. You can't avoid it coming up. It's been coming up for decades. But now you recognize it, and then you shift it. And what you're doing in turn is shifting yourself into the possibility of abundance and living a rich life in all senses, not just money.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome free course, the money shift. No, but you know what I'm saying? Because that's the basic thing, because you can be in the market or whatever, and if you or anything, and if you have that mindset, you're like, oh, and you'll think you'll lose. You'll make trades that are bad because deep down you believe that you shouldn't be making money. So you're sabotaging yourself. And it's not only in the market, it's like in anything. You're just doing stuff because you're afraid to succeed, because you don't want to get too much money. You don't want to get, and it's not, and yeah, mindset's huge in that.
Mindset is huge. Can I share a story?
Yeah, really fast. What I was picturing is like, say you want to dig like a swimming pool or something, right? Well, if you have like no money, you could use a stick, because money's a tool basically. So if you have none, you're using a stick to dig a swimming pool, and then if you get some more, you can get a shovel. But if you get more and more, you could use like a backhoe and a tractor and dig it like with really fast, because it's basically just a tool to enrich your life.
Yeah, and I love what you said. It's a flow of energy.
Yeah, it is.
If
you can't be a battery. If you're like, you can't be a battery and just store all your money in a little battery, because after a while it just leaks out.
And that's the whole idea of abundance, is shifting a perspective towards abundance. Now, I'm not saying like spend money lavishly.
No.
Another story there.
Yeah.
It's just all what I teach. This is what I love about, my students love about my courses. All of these are from personal mistakes. It's personal mistakes that I've made, like buying a sports car at 24. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
One of the stupidest mistakes that I made came back to bite me in the ass. Or going through 3 recessions on Wall Street. Right? What are the things that I learned? What mistakes did I make? And when you talked about mindset, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, John, that surprises everyone that I talk to, and I'm not shy about admitting this.
Right.
It's so, oh my God, it's so vulnerable, but I'll share it with you.
Yeah,
because your audience will benefit when someone who spent 20 plus years on Wall Street shares something that they would be so afraid of admitting in public. All right, so I'm about to share that with you. So March 2020, right? COVID.
Oh yeah.
At this point, so I just started a new consulting business for Wall Street firms, and I had one client, and I had no revenue coming in right now. Right? All my wealth that I worked 20 plus years building. And remember, I came from zero.
Right.
Negative if you count college debt. And I am invested fully. I don't have a cash reserve. I'm fully invested. And I grew up with a fear because I would see these physical abusive fights between my parents.
Yeah.
And I remember as a 5-year-old crouching in my room, crying, petrified something may happen to my mom. And if something happened to my mom, in my head, I don't know if my dad would have done that or not. I don't want to talk down about him, but I want to take you into a child's mind. Maybe my dad would have really protected me, but in my mind, I was so afraid that my father might do something to my mom that after that, I'd be thrown out in the streets of Mumbai.
Right. Yeah.
And that fear was reinforced almost every day. So as a grown adult, that fear still comes up. And that's what I mean. Those fears, those stories never go away.
Yeah, they don't go away.
Now you recognize them. All right. So see how powerful this is, John. March 2020, all right, we start hearing about COVID news. The stock market goes down 5%. Now, most of my wealth is fully invested in the stock market. All right, 5%. Okay, I'm like, okay, that doesn't feel pleasant, but it's another day in the stock market.
Right.
Now it goes down 10%. And now there's a first case in the United States. Ooh, this is starting to feel uncomfortable. 10%. It starts feeling very uncomfortable. Now, when you think about the dollar amounts that are involved
Right.
with the portfolio going down, now it feels really uncomfortable. And the little voice is saying, Andy, you're going to lose it all. You're going to be on the streets. But it's little faint. It's faint. But I feel it in my body.
Right.
Now the market goes down 15%. All right, next week. And now the voice gets louder. Andy, you're going to lose everything. Well, what are you doing? And literally, I still remember the words. Andy, how irresponsible. How irresponsible of you. How come you don't have a cash reserve? Now look at what my mind is telling me. Andy, how could you be so greedy? How could you be so greedy to be fully invested in the stock market? Didn't you see the market had gone up so much? You wanted more? Andy, how greedy. Literally, these thoughts are going in my head. And then my thought goes, Andy, you've got 2 kids. You got a wife. Are you this irresponsible? Like you could lose it all. Now the market goes down 20%. Now this voice is so loud, it's booming in my head. I can't think properly. The market goes down 25%. I succumb to this voice and I sell. And John, I don't sell a little bit.
All of it.
I sold all of it. Went completely into cash. And when I share this, one of my students was like, Andy, but you spent 20 years in Wall Street. I'm like, that's the point.
I know.
I spent 20 years in Wall Street. In spite of that, my story, my inner villain was so strong that in spite of 2 decades of experience going through 2 market recessions before this, the 40% dot-com crash, the 45% global financial crisis, in spite of that, I succumbed to my inner villain. But guess what?
Oh, what? I
realized what I did. That night, I was so uncomfortable. I went to bed like, this is so uncomfortable. It's so against my grain. I gave into that inner villain, right? The next morning, I'll share one of my tools that I share in week 10 with my students. It's a great tool to get control back from what this is a primitive mind, right? Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins talk about the primitive mind. It's just wired. It's millions of years of wiring to protect us, right? That's what my primitive mind did. It protected me. There was no saber-tooth tiger. Yeah, there was some danger out there, but I had the experience to not succumb to it, yet I did. So I was like, this is so uncharacteristic of me. So here's a simple framework that obviously went through my head at that time, but later I was able to crystallize it. It's a 4-step process. And what you want to do is you want to start simple. And I'm going to give all your viewers this process. You want to start simple. You want to chip away, because at this point, there's some part of the brain. I'm not a brain scientist, but there's some part of the brain that takes over that literally you can't think. So what you want to do is you want to do simple things to chip away control. So it's called AURA. It's called the AURA framework. I came up with it. AURA framework. O stands for observe, right? Okay, the market is going down. Simple, right? All you do is just observe. So that's that chipping away at something that is so, I don't even need to think about it. Observe, okay, the market's going down. You understand, okay, understand why it's going down, right? So understand why it's going down. It's because of this China, I don't want to blame China. There's this virus that started, that's spreading all around the world, and it's now in the US, and people are really getting this infection, this fear. I understood. You see, now I went a little deeper, a little bit more thought. I'm getting more control from my primitive mind. That's what I'm doing. And there's a framework. So O, observe, you understand. R, revisit thesis. Okay, so revisit thesis is you always want to be investing, not because someone else told you to. You want to come up with your own reasons, and I coach people how to come up with your own reasons, not a financial advisor. I don't give financial advice. I coach you how you make your own decisions, right? Using some of the frameworks that I've learned on Wall Street, my 2 cents. So I went through all my investments that I had sold. And I'm like, is this a gamble? Is this, or was it well thought through? Has anything changed? No, nothing's changed. Okay, this is still a good investment. This is still a good investment. This is still a good. I went through, and none of those were bets, obviously, because I'm not a speculator. I'm an investor. None of those were bets. None of those were gambles. And then I reminded myself, what is my goal? Am I investing for the next 12 months? Am I investing for the next 20, 30 years? I'm going to invest for the next 20, 30 years. So this is just a child story that came up in my head that, Andy, something's going to happen to your mom, your dad's going to throw you out, you're going to lose everything, you're going to be on the streets. This is a very different situation. And I'm not that helpless child. I am an adult. And I went through it. So that is revisit thesis, right? I went through all, is it a gamble or is it a thoughtful investment where and then A, so aura, observe, understand, revisit thesis. A is act.
Act.
So act, you either at that point sell everything.
Okay.
Because now you're thinking with clarity, not from an impulsive reaction that I had the day before.
Right.
So you could still sell everything because you analyzed it, you understood it, and you want to sell now, but with clarity. Or you add a little bit. You're like, oh, wow, this is such a great buying opportunity. I'm going to actually add some more to this,
There
right?
you go. Yeah.
Or you trim. You're like, look, I'm not comfortable right now. I'll go partially into cash. I'll trim. You can move around, right? You could trim something. You could add more to another investment.
Right,
That's
right.
A little bit more detail. We go into that.
Rediversify.
Yep. Or the last step. It's very simple. Either I sell everything, but with clarity, or I trim a little bit, or I add a little bit, or fourth, which I often do nothing.
Oh, okay.
Very simple framework that will help your viewers anytime there is fear in the market. It doesn't have to be a collapse. Quite often people start panicking when the market goes down 3%. I fully went back into the market the next day.
Oh, nice. So you, and
did really well.
it
Did
went back
really
up?
well. And by the way, my business started doing really well. So
Nice.
not only did I reinvest everything in the market, but I started putting more money every month. And the portfolio was up
Great.
more than it was before the market had crashed.
Nice.
Now, John, what would have happened had I succumbed and stayed in that fear,
In the cash.
in cash, and
Yeah.
had succumbed to my inner villain, stayed in cash? It would have been devastating, right? I'd lost about 40% of my net worth by that time.
Oh, yeah.
I would have been trapped in a 9-to-5 job for a very long time.
Oh, wow.
And I refused to give into that inner villain. I recognized my inner story, my childhood story, and I reframed it and I took action. And that is the important message for your viewers is, can you identify how you're potentially making disastrous choices, either by acting a certain way or by not acting a certain way?
Right.
If investing is good for me, but I'm so afraid, all right, as Dean Graziosi says, well, be resourceful. All right, who can I go learn? It doesn't have, this is not a plug for me.
No, but you're awesome.
Go find someone, right? Go find someone whose values you're aligned to, but not investing is actually risky.
It is.
Not, especially if you're a long-term, and if you're a short-term investor, most people think, oh, I'm going to be retiring in 10 years. I don't want to take big risks. But most people don't know that investing does not always mean taking big risks. You can actually design, I call it the roller coaster, right? You can have a massive roller coaster, or you could have those piggy trains, which I really love. You know, the 5-year-olds go on the piggy train, doesn't really go up and down.
Oh, yeah. It's just kind of nice. Yeah.
That's my kind of roller coaster. Like I've never liked the giant roller coasters, even as a kid, even as an adult. But if you're going to retire in 10 years' time, design your custom roller coaster that doesn't have the high highs and doesn't have the low lows, but is a little bit more, you see, this is less volatile.
Yeah.
That's comfortable with me. I've got a 77-year-old woman. So excited. 77-year-old woman who just graduated from my course. And she's like, yeah, my risk tolerance is low, but oh my God, I didn't even know I could do this.
Nice.
I didn't even know I could design a custom portfolio that is so aligned with my risk and goals that I can sleep well at night. And I know it's not just sitting in the bank in cash, losing to inflation.
No. Yeah, because it's like ice melting in inflation. It's like it's just like you got a chunk of ice and it's just slowly melting away.
Yeah.
So that whole so is it Aura or Aura?
Aura. Yeah, Aura. O-U-R-A.
Well, that goes for not only investing, but you can use that for any decision making, anytime you're faced with any kind of dilemma.
You know, John, you raise a good point. So, my investing course, I'm a student of spirituality, not religion, spirituality.
Right.
Relationships, and just digging deeper into who I am, who you are, right? So leaving ego, aside, but I think that's why you and I connect so well,
Yeah.
is because I see your soul through your eyes. And I am connecting with you on that basis. And I try and do that to my best ability. I don't do that well every time.
Right.
But if someone's questioning me, right, very pointed questioning, challenging me, one approach could be get defensive.
Right.
And then the ego's coming up, right?
Yes.
The other could be, wow, she's really interested in my perspective.
Right.
And then you see that person's soul through her eyes. And it's like, how can this is so great. I can learn a different perspective from her. This is actually so awesome. Do you see how the perspective completely changes?
Oh, it does.
So one of the things that I do in my course is, just as you identify, the aura framework not only applies to investing, but in life generally.
Yes.
Everything that I teach in my investing course is meant to get you not only to become a good investor, but what most people find when they do my course is, yes, they've got that skill set that they're learning now that they can become investors, but something else has opened up in their lives.
Right.
Some possibility that was hidden, that was blocked, opens up in their lives and they have a spring in their step. And that's what's so joyful. It's so joyful, John, to be able to see that change happen right in front of our eyes. Because I see them for 10 weeks, twice a week, and to see that change, to see their eyes light up, to see that spring in the step, to see that joy.
That's awesome.
Because they've stepped into that new possibility that seemed fleeting just a few weeks ago. And you just picked up an example. That aura framework, yes, you can apply it wherever you want.
Right. I mean, it's spot on. I mean, because otherwise you're just dealing out of fear and you just start getting to helplessness and hopelessness. And what you're describing is a transformational relationship where there's transformation between both of you. That came up recently for me. So transformational, and then there's transactional. And
Yes.
and in a relationship, and especially like in a marriage or anything, you don't really want a transactional, because then it's like, oh, well, I did this and you did that. And I was thinking the other day, well, I was actually thinking this recently. I'm all like, oh, hey, God, I'm guilty of a transactional relationship because I'm doing this and I want this. And if I do this, I feel like I should get this, instead of a transformational where he's actually changing me, I'm transforming. And through all of this, I am transforming and I'm forming transformational relationships, which is something, if you're conscious of, will change your life if those are the kind of relationships you bring in and that you have, instead of a transactional, I gave you this and now I want something back.
John, that's so important. It's so funny that, wait, not funny is not the right word, but it's almost telepathic here that you brought up the word transactional. Because only yesterday,
Oh, wow.
So I've got about 140 alumni now. Just yesterday, as I'm getting prepared for this 3-day workshop next week, I sent out an email to my alumni encouraging them, because they have experienced firsthand how life-changing the course has been, to invite someone. For someone who they care about, they love, to invite someone so that they can experience it themselves next week. And what I had in a postscript is, because some of my alumni have graduated more than a year ago. Right? Well, put in postscript is, always remember that our relationship was never transactional.
Right. That's awesome.
That you can always reach me. Just because a course is finished,
Right,
does not mean that you can't reach out to me with questions or give me a call, or if you're running into issues. Like, yes, I have a high level course next for people who want to continue on, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're in that or not.
right.
You and I started this journey together, and we're on this journey, and I'm going to support you. So it's so interesting that you brought up the word transactional, because that is the very word that I use. Why? Because these relationships are transformational.
Right. And they are. And as you transform, your heart is filled. The transactional relationships, you can tell. But to be transformed, and like in my course, I even tell them I'm just a facilitator, because I'm learning with you. I'm not like,
That's so true.
I'm not transactional where I know everything and I'm going to tell it to you. No, we're having a transformation back and forth. I'm as we're going through this, I'm getting aha moments. And even when I was doing a lot of my videos, I would start filming them, and then I'd be all, oh, wait, that's for me. That's not for you. As I'm actually, with things are coming out of my mouth and I'm hearing them, I would just stop dead in my tracks. I'd go, hey, that was for me.
Absolutely, John, and that's so important. I think, especially us where we're teaching. I don't like to use word expertise, but I've been doing this a very long time in our respective areas. But when we share, one of the things I don't like using is I never want to set up a hierarchical relationship.
No.
Right? We never want to do that. And that's exactly what you're talking about here, as well as the facilitator, right? That's such a beautiful word.
Right.
Is we're peers, because while I might have done investing for 2 decades,
right,
might know a little bit more than you do about investing. You, John, I know you've got an incredible career. Do your audience know what you do? Because you just got me super excited. Do people know what you do?
No, I don't think they did. Go ahead. You can tell them. Go ahead.
So John and I have known each other, but I've never asked him over a year, like, hey, John, what do you do? And John is an aircraft inspector. And my eyes lit up. And for the first 15 minutes of us recording this, like, I was like quizzing John, and I was like, oh my God, which planes have you inspected? And like, oh my God, about this part and that part, right? Like, John is like a super expert on airplanes.
Yeah.
And I literally felt myself as a kid in a candy store. And like, John, like, do I just take a plane and just fly right over to, like, California and come see you and like spend 3 days shadowing you?
Hey, that'd be awesome. Anytime, open invitation. That'd be great.
So this is all great. So now, like, just like so this is an example of, I could sit down with John and I will never use the word teach. Teach is hierarchical. But can I be like, hey, John, let's imagine we're in a cafe, we're both having coffee or whatever your drink of choice is, and I'm just sitting next to you just like a friend would.
Yeah.
Showing you, hey, by the way, this is something that I do. You want to, like, why don't you do it? Like, oh, you want to try? Okay, great. And just like that, John can teach me so much about airplanes, because he just happens to have been doing that for 3 decades or more.
Yeah.
And I just admire planes. So that's the whole point, is, as you've experienced, John, what you talked about is, with these 140 students that I've had in my course, or close to 1,000 women who've taken my free workshops.
Nice.
It is fascinating of how much I have learned from them. In fact, I've had some investment ideas that are in my portfolio that were researched by my students.
That's what I was going to say.
My students researched these ideas, and I was like, oh my God, like Kristen, who just graduated from my course, just researched that idea. And there's a point I want to make about this. Okay, so one is, we're facilitators, we're friends, we're peers.
Right.
We learn from each other. So I just gave a vivid example. After 2 decades on Wall Street, my students have talked about 2 investment ideas particularly that are now in my portfolio because my students researched them. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty phenomenal. But there's a side story to this. Kristen, who found this incredible bond fund, when she started, remember we started about money stories?
Right.
And money stories. I like to get to know each person. That's why I keep my cohort small at 20. I like to get to know each person really well so I can serve them. And I like to ask, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to investing? What are you most afraid of in this course? And her response really moved me. What she said is, she's in her 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And what she said is, Andy, I haven't been to school in a long time. I'm afraid I'm going to be the person who's always lagging behind in this cohort.
Oh, man.
I'm afraid I won't get what you're teaching.
Right.
I'm afraid I'm going to be behind everybody else, and everybody else is going to be so ahead of me. I didn't address it at that point. I'm like, you know what? It's Kristen, and she allowed me to share her name, and she allowed me to share her story. I read a newsletter about this. I'm like, Kristen, let's just see. Let's go through your money beliefs. Let's just see how the course develops. In week 7, we're having a live workshop, and Kristen's like, hey, at that point, I taught them how to research any fund in the world in less than 15 minutes. It's like, Andy, can I ask you a question? Because I researched this fund, and she's like talking a little timid because she's still lacking confidence, right?
Right.
Can I talk to you about this fund? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's bring it up. And as we start going through the 7 steps, I give them 7 steps, right? Make it very systematized. And as I start looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, my eyes are lighting up. And I'm like, and everybody else's eyes are lighting up. Like, you know that she's found a gem. And her eyes are lighting up. And her confidence is like, oh my God, like, I think I found something. And as we're going through step number 1, oh wow, Kristen, I want to do some more work. Okay, let's go to step. Oh my God, wow, this is really interesting, Kristen. Wow, like, okay, this is really interesting. Step 4, oh, wow, Kristen, like, okay, I might consider this for my portfolio, guys. Just because I'm considering for my portfolio doesn't mean you do. 5, okay. And then by the time we get to 7, the emotions still coming up. I started crying.
Oh, wow.
You're a teacher. You know the joy you feel when you share your skill set with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And they take it on, especially if they come with a feeling that they are less.
Right.
And they just blow it out, like do something phenomenal. And I couldn't control my emotion. Like, I turned this around just now. Imagine what it was live.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that very moment. And I asked Kristen, like, Kristen, do you remember what you shared when you started the course? How do you feel about that right now?
Wow.
You're the first person in this entire cohort to come up with a brand new idea that is so freaking awesome. I'm going to include it in my portfolio.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it until yesterday or until like 10 minutes ago. And you could just see her body language shift, that she owns it.
Yeah.
That old thinking was out. She owned it. And that moment for her was so pivotal, so transformational, right? We talk about, okay, there's a course on investing. I bet she didn't imagine when she signed up for this course on investing that she's going to have a radical transformational shift about her self-belief.
Right.
And gosh, she inspires me so much, just like all the other students. And each one of the 140 students who have gone through my course have had some phenomenal transformational experience. And I'm so grateful for. And as you talked about, we learn from everybody. I've learned something from each one of these 140 amazing people who've come through my workshop. So what a great point that he brought up.
Wow. And what you just described is a transformational relationship that you and her had, and the whole class. And that you actually, it transformed your view, but you had the joy of, because I've seen it in our groups of how people have changed. And so you witnessed her transformation and you were part of it, and it transformed.
Everybody else was, right?
Yes. And it transforms both of you. It's not like it's only hers, because you witnessed it and were part of it, and it transformed your spirit also.
Absolutely. Like, okay, that was a sacrifice that I made about giving up my Wall Street career, but this is the moment.
Right.
This is the moment for which I did it.
And it's actually changed.
That inspires me to go do more.
Right. Because
free workshops.
It's changing you.
Yeah.
And I've changed since doing this, and I've changed so much that I can't deny. You know how we try to deny that we've changed? If someone goes, "Oh, you changed," you're like, "No, I haven't." But it's been so drastic that I can't deny it. This whole path, it's such a change that I can't deny that I've changed, and the relationships I've formed and stuff.
It's huge.
It is huge.
And again, for that cohort with the 19 others there.
Yeah.
Of course, each one of them, there's no race, right? There's no race versus each other. Everybody's becoming a better version than what they were 2 days ago, with better skill sets, with more realization, with more understanding of who we are, the people. And each one of them, amazing transformation results. But at that moment, they watched this interaction and were like, that's exactly what I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
Just like Kristen. That's what I'm doing as well. And that is pretty darn good.
It's awesome. And I don't know about you, when you started this journey, it's like, do I have anything of value to teach? Am I a coach or not a coach? Am I a teacher? Is anyone going to want this? Can I charge for this? It's all these different hoops you got to go through and as you're growing. And then a lot of it's not It's still bad, but not so bad because of the interaction with the Zoom and everything. But could you imagine if you're doing this alone in like your office or something without the interaction of the group? Because that's what keeps it alive for me. Because they say that most people stop in like 2 weeks when they try to take this journey.
Yeah. And
Because
that
they're
that
alone.
interaction, that accountability is really important. And to feed off each other's energies, to feel, hey, I'm not the only one who's not getting this. I'm not the only one who's feeling confused, right?
Right.
Wow, like I can actually teach. Oh wow, I can actually teach this concept to my peer. Oh wow, I
Right.
feel good about that. Oh wow, like there's a different perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of like camaraderie that comes in a cohort, and then there's a lot of camaraderie that comes with facilitating
Yeah,
the
exactly.
interactions and coaching someone through it. It's you know I like to quote Dean a lot because I'm just so inspired by
Right.
him. But he talks about this quite often. Is all these steps are uncomfortable, right? They are. And learning a new skill set is uncomfortable. It's so
Yeah.
easy to remain in status quo, right? Nothing changes. Great. Well, awesome. I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep eating. I'm gonna keep eating my 2 tablespoons of ice cream every night because it's so great, but I'm putting on so much weight, but I'm not gonna do anything about it. Status quo is easy.
And I come home and watch Netflix and go to bed and get up to work for the next day and just have dinner and come home, so play with the kids, watch Netflix, go to bed.
And life, when it's busy, becomes
Oh,
monotonous and in a rut, and status quo is easy. And that's why I love when Dean says making a shift, making a change is uncomfortable action. But when you take that uncomfortable action and you get the right support system, right?
yes.
With a coach, with a court, when you get the right support system, yes, it will be uncomfortable. But your next level, you've heard him say this a million times, your next level lies on the other side of your uncomfortable action. And I've seen that just with what I'm doing today, right, John? Like I don't know when you started, but it was so uncomfortable. All those emotions you talked about were vivid in my mind. And by the way, I'd left a Wall Street career.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now the pressure is even high. But then you know what I changed for myself? I changed for myself. I'm not doing this for the money.
No.
I'm doing this to serve. Because if I was doing this for the money, I would just stay in the Wall Street career.
Right.
So let me shift. I'm not going to deny the pressure. How am I going to replace my income? I got a family. I'm not single. I got to provide for them.
Right.
How am I going to replace my income? And I said, that is the bad energy that's coming in. And I need to shift the focus on how can I serve? Because that's the first place why I'm doing this. How can I serve this person? And if I serve with all my heart and really help this person genuinely, authentically, not transactional, transformational relationship. Money is energy, as you talked about.
Yes.
The money will come. I'm not worried about that. But the first order of service is exactly that.
Right.
Serve this person. I gotta not exactly help again, but how can I share my skill set because they've asked me to share my skill set with them? And how can I do that in a responsible, authentic way that they actually get the result that they want?
Right. How can I help transform this person to the best person that they can be?
And it's the same thing. I'm doing a 3-day workshop next week, right? And there's a lot of people in our industry who are sleazy. They'll do a 3-day workshop and it's a long infomercial to sell their course.
Right.
And for me, the purpose is very clear. Yes, I'll be offering my course. My course starts May 16th. But if not one person signs up for my course, I'm totally okay with that. Because the goal of the 3-day workshop isn't to sell people into my course. The goal of the 3-day workshop is for them to come and experience that investing doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't mean something for the professional. I can actually do this. This can actually be fun. And that win for someone and seeing that I can actually do this and I can step and take the next step, whatever that might be. That's the goal.
Yeah, right. And you were actually saying that this 3-day course that's free is actually a paid course.
You're right, John. So this is a $300 course on Mastermind, and it's called Invest in Your Future Challenge. And people can buy it for $300. But this is my opportunity to teach this course live and interact live And we're going to go for an hour and a half on Tuesday.
Yeah, I went to one of your hour and a half, 4 hour courses on bonds.
An hour and a half, 4 hour courses. That's exactly right, John.
And you know what? I was there the whole time, and it was awesome. And it was
You
not
were there
boring
the whole time. And yes, it's fascinating. So I'm assuming it was entertaining, and
it was very entertaining.
You were really plugged into it. So that's right. That was the first time my 1.5 hour course became a 4 hour course 2 Fridays ago, because everybody just loved it. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll give more. And I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta go pick up my kids. But next, all right. So next week you're gonna have something similar.
I'm hoping it's the same.
So we're scheduled to go for an hour and a half from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern on May 2nd, 3rd, 4th. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then we're going to have a VIP session. I'm not going to charge anything for the VIP session.
Oh, you're awesome.
Just like John said, we'll cover amazing content in an hour and a half, but then people have questions. Like, look, we're taking you from I have no knowledge where to start, right? Again, I'm not one about making gimmicky promises. This 3-day event is not going to make you an investor. Let me just repeat that. In 3 days, you're not going to become an investor. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to walk away with skill sets, with tangible skill sets, where you see why investing is so important. And I'll give you a stat that I was talking to you about, John, earlier. Why is investing so important? What are these mistakes that most investors make? Right? Most non-professional investors make the same mistake, like, oh, investing in the 10 hottest stocks, 10 best stocks, asking a knowledgeable friend for their best stock tips. I'll talk about why that's one of the biggest mistakes you could be making. You might as well go to the casino. And then I'm going to share one of the best kept Wall Street secrets. I call it a secret. It shouldn't be a secret. It won a Nobel Prize. Yet people who are not on Wall Street have no idea about this strategy. And a lot of my things, you pick my personality, is silly, goofy. We want to make investing fun.
Right.
So it's just called bad dance partners. Bad dance partners. You'll have to come to the event to learn about why it's called bad dance partners. And it's such a phenomenal strategy to reduce risk without potentially giving up returns.
Right.
It's a phenomenal concept. Most people have no idea how to do it. And we're going to talk about on day 2. And day 3, we're going to put together a portfolio. I'm going to show you how most people just play in single stocks in the United States, but there's a whole world of other choices that you can access that most people have no idea about. So what you walk away with is, quite often we don't know what we don't know. You'll walk away with some skill sets that are really tangible, that I'm not about guaranteeing. That's very gimmicky.
Yeah.
But about 1,000 people have done this workshop. And the common feedback is, wow, Andy, I could make at least one change that has shifted the trajectory of my wealth. And quite often it's 2 or 3 or 4 things, but you'll see that for yourself. And the fact that this fear that I have about this amorphous, scary animal called investing, what is that? I have no idea. It's amorphous. It lives out there. It's complicated. Only the professional Wall Street can do this.
Right.
And for women, quite often, it's flawed social conditioning. My wife felt the same way, even though she's married to me for 12 years. Only men can invest.
Oh, yeah.
It's this flawed social conditioning that you emerge from this so empowered. One, you've got a few skill sets that you can start shifting how you think about investing, but you've radically shifted your relationship with investing. You see, wow, this can actually be super fun. This is actually doable. Even though I'm super busy and I have no time, this is actually doable. And this is empowering. This is my birthright. I got to step into it.
Yeah, that question was raised by someone I know. How much, I don't have time to do it. Like, how much time would somebody actually have to do to manage their investments after they've gone through your course?
So look, after you've done this course, you'll actually, the outcome of the course, the 10-week course, not the 3-day one, the 10-week.
Yeah, it's a 10-week.
You go from, I don't know where to start, to designing your custom portfolio, which you build.
Right.
And it's simple. It's 5 to 10 funds, not single stocks. And you actually invest that in the stock market in week 10. You invest that in the stock market in week 10. After that, it's 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes
John,
a day?
you're not looking at stocks every day.
Right.
And you're not even trading every day. We're not doing that.
No.
Because my mantra for investing, this should bring ease, joy, and abundance.
Okay.
But it's not simplistic, because that is gimmicky.
Right.
But investing should bring ease, joy, and abundance. So the 15 minutes a day, what we're doing is we're reading this one email from the Wall Street Journal. And I have no affiliation with the Wall Street Journal. I just happen to have looked at different news sources over the last 2 decades. And I really like this one email because I'm looking for data. I'm looking for figures, not so much for the opinions.
Right.
I don't need a barrage of news coming from all different angles. So there's this one email a day that I'm reading for 15 minutes a day. And then I invest once a month.
Wow, that's good.
I invest, it's not a set and forget it. So I invest once a month in the portfolio design and graduation. I'm not going to have knee-jerk reactions to events that are happening. I'll invest again in month 2, say on the 15th of the month. I'll invest in month 3. Then in month 4, I have now read for 15 minutes a day, right?
Yeah.
So John, Tony talks about the reticular articulating system.
Mm-hmm.
And what that is for those of our viewers who don't know what this is say you go out and buy a red car, right? Let's just make it even more specific. You buy a red Ford 150. Now, I've never seen a red Ford 150, but let's just assume it's a red Ford 150.
Yeah, because they're mostly white.
They're mostly white or blue or black.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
now buy a red Ford 150. You've never seen it in your life, but you go buy that red Ford 150. John, what happens immediately after you drive it off the parking lot is now you see, oh my God, there's another red Ford 150 there. Oh my God, there's another red Ford 150 there. Like, wait, I have never ever seen a red Ford 1. And now they're like all over the place. It's just because the mind is now actively going towards something that you're very familiar with. So now in my course, the students design a portfolio with 5 to 10 funds. Say a fund holds hundreds of stocks, right? Not one stock. So say they invest in a European fund. It invests in companies that are listed in Europe.
Right.
Louis Vuitton or whatever, right? It's got 100, 200 companies in that fund. Well, now when I open up this Wall Street Journal email, I'll quickly scan through it. And my mind is automatically going to go, if there is a little news blurb about Europe, it doesn't have to be there every day. But when it's there, my mind is automatically going to go there. And I'm going to read that. I don't need to be a professional Wall Street. I'll read that. And I've done the course, so I understand the jargon. And I'll make a tiny 1 degree shift in my understanding about Europe.
Nice.
Oh, 3 days later, there's another article about Europe. Oh, wow. Oh, now I made another tiny shift. Now, John, you're reading every day or most days. Imagine after 4 months, having done the course, you'll have a different perspective, different worldview, a more, not necessarily a more nuanced worldview. And then you come back and you revisit your thesis, the aura framework. You revisit the thesis, you make some changes if you want to make changes. And then you're off at it again for the next 3 to 4 months. So you see how it is not a set it and forget it?
Yeah.
And for a busy person, a busy woman, a busy man, you're not consuming your life looking at all these news, getting afraid of fear-mongering. Trading, you're not looking at stocks. That's a miserable way to live. But you're coming to it in a very systematic fashion.
So what's that email? Is it a trade secret or?
No, I'm happy. I'll share the link for your viewers. So it's a Wall Street Journal email. Of course, you need to get a Wall Street Journal subscription to be able to read the articles. You can just get the email free of cost, but to read the articles, you need a Wall Street Journal subscription. But again, I have no affiliation. I get no commissions. Your viewers should know that this is truly something that I read myself or derive a lot of value.
Yeah, and I can truly say that if they don't go to this course, it'd be very foolish because I know how much value you have and everything. But no, it's really great. And no, like what we were saying, that we're transforming. Like right now, I'm realizing that I have to run this as my not a hobby anymore, because what I'm doing, and you probably cross across this, is you're cheating people from helping them. Like if I just run this willy-nilly and not take it seriously as like a business or more than a hobby, then I'm cheating like people from hearing your story and other people from hearing other people's stories and promoting them. And maybe like from this, people and women, people will hear this and it changed their whole lives.
Right.
And if I don't take it seriously, that person's life didn't get changed. Just like you, if you didn't take this seriously, those lives that you're changing wouldn't be touched, and their generations and whatever else. You never know.
It's exactly right. And
So you're cheating people. You think that no one wants this, but no, we're all relational, and if a piece is missing, it changes everything.
and that's where I think it comes down to associating with people whose values align with yours,
Yes.
right? Is not falling for get rich quick schemes,
No.
not falling for something that sounds so good and that inner voice deep down is telling you that sounds a little too good to be true.
Right.
But when we don't know what we don't know, we fall for it, right?
Yes, we do. We do.
And it's, they're out there.
Oh
Those
yeah.
people are out there.
And they take advantage.
They take advantage. And that's what makes our job even more important, John, to your point, is one, not only is serving the people with our skill set, right? But getting out there, getting more in front of people, doing events like this where
Right.
they get to see you, they get to hear you, they get to see if my spirit aligns with yours,
Right. Right.
and then find something that is meaningfully transformative for them. So thank you for saying that.
No, it's really true. And well, I got to wrap this up.
Great.
So, but Andy, what a pleasure. So happy to know you and call you a friend. And you have like the hugest heart. And I hope my heart's just half as big as yours. and it's growing there, but no, you inspire me. And
As do you.
yes, and definitely transformational relationships are formed, and let's transform the world.
That sounds great, John. Thank you. So what we'll do is we'll put the link for next week's challenge. But John, I see content from months ago, so this will be evergreen. So we'll put another link. I'd love to give a gift to your audience, and it'll be self-explanatory. It's most people start the investing journey without even recognizing where they're going.
Right.
And I've developed this very simple 5 risk questions that it's a 6-minute clip right from my course.
Perfect.
So we'll include that second link, and people can come into my newsletter and they can benefit from that content as well. But that's a great people will benefit from.
Yeah, we'll put all your links and everything. All right, Andy. Well, thank you so much.
John, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank